Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a really powerful piece of source material, a case study by Brenda Davies called The Girl Behind the Gates. We're going to unpack the truly devastating reality of Britain's 1913 Mental Deficiency Act, and we're going to do it through a story that is as heartbreaking as it is eye-opening.
To really understand this, we have to look at the world our subject, a young woman named Nora Jennings, was living in. This was a society completely obsessed with keeping up appearances. We are looking at a culture that was entirely willing, eager even, to take its perceived moral failures and literally lock them away behind heavy iron gates. It's a stark, horrifying division. On the outside, you have this picturesque, perfectly acceptable 1930s British village life. But on the inside, you have the hidden horrors of an institutional system designed to erase you if you didn't perfectly fit the mold.
So our narrative starts at a really tense, whispering pace in 1939. Nora is young, she's unwed, she's from a highly respectable family, and she is carrying a desperate secret. She discovers she's pregnant. Terrified of bringing a scandal upon her family, she gets a note along with a smuggled bottle of quinine pills from the family housekeeper. Driven by pure panic, Nora takes a massive dose of these pills alone in her bedroom, just praying to end a pregnancy that she knows will completely ruin her life.
But the pills don't work. Instead, they just make her violently ill, leading to a chilling confrontation with her mother. When her mother finally puts the pieces together and discovers the truth, the reaction is visceral. The source text actually describes her mother looking at Nora as if she were fending off some kind of contamination. Just like that, in a split second, that protective maternal bond is entirely shattered by the overwhelming, paralyzing fear of social ruin.
And things at home turn violent almost immediately. You might hope a father would step in to protect his daughter, right? Well, not here. Upon hearing the news, Nora's father brutally beats her with a leather belt right there in the family parlor. It perfectly and tragically illustrates how families at the time frequently prioritized their social reputation over the actual safety and well-being of their own children. His rage is entirely focused on how Nora's actions have destroyed their standing in the community.
Now, what happens next is wild, because it shows exactly how quickly a personal, family crisis gets hijacked by the system. That very evening, a makeshift tribunal gathers in the Jennings parlor. Think about this lineup. You've got the local doctor representing community health, the priest representing moral authority, and an asylum administrator, Dr. Mason, representing the harsh hand of the state. Overnight, Nora ceases to be a daughter in trouble. She becomes a problem to be solved by the patriarchal authorities of society.
And here is the absolutely crucial point we need to understand. The men in that parlor, they weren't operating outside the law. They were enforcing it. Under the 1927 revision to the Mental Deficiency Act of 1913, simply being an unmarried pregnant woman legally categorized you as a moral defective. You were grouped right alongside criminals, alcoholics, and prostitutes. By law, the state literally viewed Nora as incapable of managing herself and as a moral threat to the rest of society.
So, let's look at the absolute legal trap Dr. Mason springs on the family. Because Nora took quinine to attempt an abortion, she committed a criminal offense. Dr. Mason coldly lays it out for the parents. They can either face public ruin and a criminal trial in court, a trial which, by the way, could implicate the parents for aiding and abetting, or they can sign Nora over to a mental deficiency colony indefinitely. Faced with the choice between public scandal and quiet removal, the family chooses the asylum.
Whisked away in a dead of night, without so much as a proper goodbye from her mother, Nora arrives at the terrifying Gothic arches of Hillinghurst Hospital. Those heavy gates close behind her, completely cutting her off from the outside world. That's it. She is officially institutionalized, completely stripped of her rights, and hidden away just to preserve the pristine image of her family and her village.
This is where the systematic dismantling of her identity begins. Think about the contrast here. The respectable British society of singing in church choirs, playing the parlor piano, wearing pretty dresses, that is entirely stripped away. It's immediately replaced by a hacked-off haircut swept into a newspaper, scratchy green asylum uniforms, and forced labor. We're talking scrubbing freezing marble floors until her knees literally bleed. Make no mistake, she isn't a patient receiving care, she's an inmate serving a sentence.
And the psychological warfare they use to maintain control is just striking. The bad guy here isn't just one abusive person, it's the entire institutional system. Dr. Mason gives Nora this chilling piece of advice. He tells her it will be best if she just considers her family dead.
It shows you exactly how the institution functioned. They wanted to completely break the spirit of their inmates. By severing all emotional ties and any hope of rescue, the hospital ensured total, unquestioning compliance.
Within this system, empathy was viewed as an absolute threat. Take Nurse Hatton, for example. When she shows just a glimmer of humanity by hiding a smuggled, hand-knitted baby jacket for Nora's birthday, she's violently confronted by her superior, Sister Cummings. Nurse Hatton tries to defend Nora, pointing out that the girl is completely isolated with nothing and nobody, but Hatton is instantly fired. The source text makes it devastatingly clear basic human compassion had absolutely no place within the walls of Hillinghurst.
The cruelty only escalates. When Nora goes into labor and is taken to the treatment room, she's completely stripped of all bodily autonomy. She's subjected to a forced enema, strapped down by her wrists and ankles to an iron bed frame with heavy leather restraints, and when she cries out in pain, Sister Cummings physically slaps her across the face. The medical staff treat the birth not as a medical event, but as a punishment for a moral failing.
What follows is arguably the darkest moment in the source text. Nora's baby is born with respiratory distress, but instead of providing medical care, the staff, acting under orders, deliberately carry the newborn into an unheated sluice room. They abandon this tiny child on a freezing marble slab to die of hypothermia and neglect. And when a younger nurse discovers what's happening, she is threatened into absolute silence.
Now, you might be asking yourself, how could doctors rationalize this? This horrific act wasn't just random, chaotic cruelty. It directly reflects the prevalent eugenics ideology of the time. When a younger doctor confronts Dr. Mason about the infanticide, Mason justifies it using the exact cold logic of the time. He states that the children of moral defectives are likely to be defective themselves and claims that nature was simply allowed to take its course. Doctors like Mason genuinely believe that letting an infant die was a justified way to protect the so-called purity of the British race from defective genes.
In the tragic aftermath, Nora is completely broken. But look at how the system responds to her very real, very human grief. Her silent weeping, her rocking, her sheer inability to eat out of pure despair, it is met only with mechanical, institutional violence. The system refuses to recognize her trauma. When she won't eat, they tie her to a chair with bandages, hold her nose shut to violently force-feed her, and ultimately drag her across the floor by her hair to an isolation room. It's a chilling portrait of a system designed to completely crush the human soul under the guise of medical care.
As we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us grappling with a really hard question. Nora Jennings was locked away because society deemed her a moral defective. But when medical and legal systems actively collaborate to strip away human rights, sanction infanticide under the banner of eugenics, and sanitize horrific physical abuse, who are the real monsters behind those gates? It challenges us to look closely at our own institutions today and ask, how do we ensure our society never ever builds these hidden gates again? Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this look at the girl behind the gates leaves you with a lot to think about.